Welcome to episode 7 of the Florida Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Peter Pappas, and today we're going to do something a little different. I've got my friend Jeff Douberly here with me, and Jeff is going to ask me some questions so you, the viewer, can get to know me a little bit better.
Almost turning the table a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because you've had other people on. I've watched a few of the episodes I've been on. Mm-hmm. And the conversation has, almost deferred from Peter. And Peter's allowed other people to get to know business partners. You had a financial planner on, mm-hmm. Other agents. And so now it's an opportunity for the folks to get to know you.
Yeah. In a nice intimate setting.
Intimate.
Yeah.
Just the two of us.
Right.
I haven't done it with just one other person.
I have not either.
Yeah, this is different. And
I'm into the whole group thing.
Yeah, usually I can refer to somebody else, or I have my head to turn. Right. Now it's just me and you.
That's it.
Prolonged eye contact.
Lots of pressure.
I know we talked a little bit before this, but you wanted to touch on a few things. Do you want to talk about a little bit, because I know what I know about Peter Pappas is, and I'm saying that correct, Peter Pappas.
Yeah. Mostly.
How would you pronounce your last name?
Pappas.
Pappas.
Yeah.
Peter Pappas.
Yeah.
I will do better.
Okay.
But yeah, every time I refer to you, it's by full name.
I don't mind it. I like it.
You're from New Jersey.
I am.
You owned a diner there, and I'm going to let you talk on all those things. Yeah. And then the move to Florida, you had a few things you did here, a couple ventures, and now in real estate, and we'll go through them.
Yes, sir.
Let's, talk about being from Jersey and what you did there.
Okay. So, yeah, I grew up in New Jersey, in Morris County, New Jersey. Very beautiful place. I know a lot of people here in New Jersey, and the old joke was, what exit? Because they fly into Newark or go into the city right away, or they just travel New Jersey by highway, and all they see is the highway. But once you get off those exits, New Jersey is a beautiful state with lush greenery. It's known as the Garden State. The town I grew up in Madison, New Jersey, was known as the Rose City and still is, and that's because it was the largest producer of roses in the whole world. The Queen of England used to get her roses from Madison, New Jersey. They were known to be the best.
Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, my parents were both born in Greece. They immigrated here when they were in their teens, didn't speak any English, true American success story. They moved here. My dad was a heck of a hard worker. Man, he started a business, sold that, started another one, sold that, and then ended up buying the diner that is still in the family to this day, I think in 1965. And, he ran that with, at the time, my uncle. My uncle suffered a heart attack in the 80s and got out of it, so it was just my dad. And as his boys were becoming of age, he, pushed us. He asked us what we wanted, and he said, do you want to maybe go into this business? And we did. My brother went to culinary school. He studied culinary arts, the Culinary Institute of America. I did the same years later. He went and worked at a lot of great restaurants. He worked at Windows of the World, which was a famous restaurant in the World Trade Center, and then a bunch of really high-end local eateries in our area to train. I, years later, went to the Culinary Institute of America, studied baking and pastry arts.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's news to me.
You didn't
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Do you still have any sort of passion towards those things now?
A little bit. I love to eat. I love going out to eat. I respect the culinary world so much, and I just love being a part of it. And I still like to, I know who's doing it right and who isn't when I do go out.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about, I guess for me, and you tell me when we talk about the pastry. You said, what was it that it was?
The degree was baking and pastry arts.
Arts.
Yeah.
And so, is there any? You have 2 kids.
Yeah.
How old are they?
11 and 10.
And I feel like if I had any sort of expertise in that, I would want to show that off to them. Do you ever take the opportunity to kind of whip anything up that's a little fancier? Or?
I have made stuff for them. I've made cookies, but no, nothing crazy, and I should do more of that. We'll get into it, but I'm a single dad. So I feel like sometimes when I do have them, and I try to stay in the moment as much as possible, but I always feel like I'm in just a flurry, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
sure.
My head is on a swivel, and we're getting to the next practice, or we're going to the next event, or I'm trying to squeeze in a showing,
I
or
got you.
I'm always on the run, so it's tough.
Yep. But yeah, don't get too far off track. You were talking about going into the diner with your brother.
Yeah. So we both went into the business together. He went in a few years ahead of me. He's a bit older. I joined him probably around 94, and we both took over full time in 98-ish, and we ran it for together, just the two of us, for almost 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So, just shy of that, but
I've never been in the food industry. I never worked a job that
Yeah.
was dealt with food. I was never a server, never a cook. And I have a passion for those things now, but I mean, it's not an easy space, especially to exist for 20 years. And to do that with a family member, I think says a lot as well.
I will say this. There's been times in my life when I've doubted my ability as a partner to somebody else, whether it's been a girlfriend, a wife, or whatever. And then I always just think back to that. Yeah, my brother and I were able to partner up, and it wasn't always like hunky-dory. There were
Sure.
times where we
Yeah.
had arguments. There were times where we didn't agree, but we were so in tune with each other, and we just knew. There were times where something meant a lot to him, and I could tell that. So I would give him that battle. And there were other times where something meant a lot to me, and he would give me that battle. And we got very good at doing that. And I will say this, the service industry is a great place to learn how to talk to people. Where we were located, Main Street in Madison, New Jersey is the largest collection of Fortune 500 headquarters in the world.
Wow.
A lot of people don't realize that. A lot of people that work and live in Madison work in Manhattan, Wall Street, traders, advertising, you name it, big pharma. So a lot of people that would come into the diner were all these executives, CEOs, people that they'd be in the diner eating, and then there'd be like an old CNBC interview with them right on the screen too. It's kind of funny, yeah. And then also it's a diner.
So I'm thinking diner.
Yeah.
And I guess being from here, I've lived in Melbourne, Florida my entire life. The diner to me is not necessarily like a Denny's, but we don't have many diners, I guess.
Sure. That's why I was going to get to that. So a diner is a really casual place, and it's a place where a community can go, and you will see everybody from the everyman to a plumber to an electrician to the CEO of Pfizer or the CEO of Campbell's Soup or Novartis.
Wow.
They would all come in too. Doctors, lawyers. It was such a wide mix of people.
Very diverse.
Yeah, and it was great. It was a carnival, and when it was busy, which was a lot, it was a very successful restaurant. It still is. My brother's still there. It really was almost like a carnival, well-oiled carnival. Everything was loud and fun and exciting, and people were happy. And that is a diner in New Jersey and New York, and even anywhere in the Northeast, pretty much, is very different than anything you'll see here.
Wow.
Nothing like it. So, and a lot of times they were 24 hours. Ours was, and eventually we cut it to 3 a.m. We'd stop at 3 a.m.
And then when do you start back up again?
6.
Yeah. And what do you fill those 3 hours with? Like, I mean, obviously you don't have employees, and the person that's leaving at 3 a.m. is not there at 6, but...
Well, kind of, because the person that's locking the door at 3 is cleaning up and everything. By the time they're getting out of there, the guys that are coming in to set up for 6 are coming in. So we're all meeting in the middle. Yeah. For years, my brother and I, we would do, one guy would work the night shift and one would work the day, and we'd rotate every other month. And it was, interesting. The place was very different at night. It was cool. But it was a very different group of people again. Three major universities in the town, so a lot of college kids would come in. A lot of politicians would come in. Every governor in New Jersey and senator was always in there. Got to know Chris Christie really well. McGreevy before that. Tom Kane used to come in all the time. Christy Whitman, she used to come in.
So the diner still exists.
The diner still exists, yeah.
Do you have any involvement other than your brother's still involved?
Ish, but, that's, that'll come down the road sometime.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to be the property owners of that for a long time to come.
And so when did you, and if you care to share the reason, why did you eventually leave New Jersey and the diner?
Okay, so that's a good question because I had great success doing it. We did well. We made good money. But I was never really passionate about it, ever. It's just something I was good at. I was good at managing people. We had about 50 full and part-time employees at any given time, give or take. And I had gotten good at just getting the best out of people.
Sure.
I've learned a lot about them. I learned a lot about myself. And but it takes a toll on you doing that for a long period of time. And if you're not passionate about it, that toll eventually just becomes numbing.
Kind of burnout.
Yeah. So I knew eventually I wouldn't be able to do it forever. I had a conversation with my brother once. I was like, hey, this is where I'm at. I'm thinking this. Where are you at? And he was like, I'm not there. I'm more in the distance than you. He wanted to retire a little further down the road. I wasn't even talking about retirement. I was just trying to figure a way out. I was like, maybe we sell it and do something different, But at the end, when we decided, my then wife and I at the time, to move down here, our kids were 2 and 3. We had a very it wasn't easy because there was a lot of moving parts to it, but it was a very peaceful exit. For me to we found somebody to buy my shares. It was sad. I was sad to leave. They were sad to see me leave, that sort of thing. But everybody was happy too. It was a very amicable thing. So yeah, and why we chose Melbourne or Brevard County, more to the point, is growing up since 1986, and even before that, we would always come to this county for vacation. And then my parents eventually bought a place in Melbourne Beach, right on the beach, in 1986. And that was like a second home to us. My parents eventually would start coming down here for about 6 months a year, stay 6 months a year. They were snowbirds,
Yep.
And then I would start coming down a couple times a year. My brother was coming here. It really was a second home to us for many, many years. So then when I decided to move with my wife, and we said, where should we go? We had a few ideas, but this was always the place that we were going to end up.
And when was that?
2015.
Okay.
So yeah, closing in on 10 years here as an official Floridian.
And when you came here, you went right into real estate?
Nope.
No.
So I had a list. Real estate was on the list. I had a list of 4 things that I think I thought, I might want to get into. And right off the bat, when I moved down here, I was offered to buy into a real estate franchise by friends of mine in New Jersey. And it was a Wakert Realty franchise. And Wakert Realtor started in New Jersey, in Madison, actually. And my father and Jim Wakert are good friends. And, we know them. He used to come into the diner. Diner's his favorite place to eat. So It's funny for me to see Wakert Realtors sometimes down here when I'm driving around. So that was appealing. But at the time, I was like, I don't feel right buying a business that at the time I didn't know enough about.
Yep.
Well, they're like, you don't need to own it. You'll just hire a broker and you'll be an owner. And you can eventually, and it just didn't feel right. So I decided to pass on that. I decided to, hold off real estate at the time. And I opened up a comic book and collectible shop in VR called VR Comics.
Yeah.
That was a dream of mine. I had a very large personal collection of comics. Something I always wanted to do. I used to always tell the guy that had a shop in Madison, I was like, if you ever want to sell, I'll buy it, because I always wanted to buy his shop. And he never did, and he eventually sold it after I had left.
Now, the shop you had here, was that existing before you got here, or you
No.
opened it from?
Opened it from scratch. It was a shell. It was a room kind of like this, but there was stuff. There was no ceiling. There was no flooring. It was
And where was it exactly?
right near Tuscany Grill. It was like one store over in Suntree.
Yeah.
So that was a real accomplishment whenever I looked at what it was before, and then months after I had started, this huge room of like collectibles and toys. It was cool. It was a real great accomplishment to be able to start something from scratch and turn it into a very big operation. And it was tough. The first year was tough. I will say this: from owning a business in New Jersey that was already existing and starting to run that, and then starting a business that I had to start from scratch, I was very naive.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, well, I'm going to open this place up, and they're just going to come rolling in.
What's something you learned from that experience?
I learned how to be a great marketer, like almost to the point where, you hear the term guerrilla marketing.
Yeah.
I just tried everything and anything, and I got really good at getting people's attention. I got really good at networking down here. I had grown the business and the Facebook page at the time in just a year, like over 5,000 people. And as I was growing, I was evolving. I started partnering with a YouTube channel that did comics and cosplay. And locally, we would make superhero videos, and we'd talk about the shop, and we'd showcase the shop. And our presence was growing almost worldwide in a sense.
Sure.
I had people come in from England one day, and they said, we were in Orlando for vacation, but I wanted to come meet you. I've seen your videos, and I wanted to see the shop.
How great is that?
That was amazing. That was like, it blew me away. And we would get invited to comic conventions all across the country. We didn't go west, but we did a lot in North Carolina, a lot in Boston, New York.
Now you going back to the diner you mentioned, and you listed off a bunch of names that I'm sure mean something to people listening. To me, I didn't recognize a whole lot of them. You hear them in
Sure.
the news and whatnot. But did you get to meet any big personalities or big names with the comic book space?
Oh yeah, for sure. I did a lot of book signings there, and this one guy, I'm embarrassed I can't think of his last name right now, but he started writing comics based on professional wrestlers. Is he a big name? Probably not giant, but for me it was great because I grew up watching 80s wrestling.
Sure.
And he was doing comic books on the 80s wrestlers. And one time we had Nikolai Volkov come in to the shop. You remember the Russian guy?
Sure.
Yeah. So he does a book signing at the shop, and afterwards we go to eat dinner at Tuscany Grill. It's me, John, and Nikolai Volkov, and we sat for 2 or 3 hours talking. I remember at one time it was like surreal. I turned to him. I was like, I can't believe I'm eating dinner with you right now. Somebody I watched growing up, and but I also got to meet a lot of big stars at the conventions. I met the guys from Cobra Kai, Machio and Zabka, and that was even before they had done Cobra Kai.
So you're in that space.
I'm in that space.
You have the comic books,
and
then you want to talk about your transition into real estate? And
Sure, yeah. So the shop was going well. Any new business is going to take a few years to get really profitable. You're probably going to see that in year 3. But at the end of year 2, or a little bit after year 2, I got a divorce with my wife at the time, and the kids were 4 and 5, about 4 and 3, 4 and 5, somewhere around there. Man, it was tough to run a shop with 2 young kids as a single dad.
Yeah.
So I did it for another year. But that whole year I knew, I had to come up with an exit strategy, and I had to figure out what was next. So I would say about midway through that year, I met some people. They were they were the best customers at the comic shop, and they had overheard me talking to somebody that was interested in buying it, but ended up not buying it. And they were like, "Well, we're interested." So the shop started, doing better, and they ended up buying everything, but they also moved it. They moved it to West Melbourne.
Is it still there?
It was. They ended up shutting it down like a few months ago. Not because it wasn't doing well, but just because they didn't realize how hard it was going to be.
Sure.
They're like, well, we didn't know we'd have to be here all the time. Yeah. Well, that's what owning a business is.
Yep.
And but as I was, locked that down and they were buying the place, I had started studying for my real estate license. I had known that was what I was going to get into next. It was something I had always wanted to do. I had grown a large network of people that knew me now.
Yep.
I had a sphere. I wasn't coming into this county cold, which can be very difficult. And I passed my test in 18 and started working for a boutique firm in Indialantic called Curry Kirshner.
Wow. So you start into real estate, and did you have a lot of people who try and break into this space may have early struggles? You say you have the connections from the comic book shop. You've even mentioned to me you still have some connections and stuff from the diner of people that may want to move down here and stuff.
Sure.
So did you have any struggles in that when you first entered the space?
Yeah, sure. And I will say that.
And then I guess what were the struggles, and then how did you find success in that first, transition into real estate?
Well, so I had this sphere, right? And I did not do any business with any of them that first year, not one. But I will say now in my fifth year, I'm trying to think. I've did 4 deals this year with people that were regular customers at the comic book shop, who now years later are coming
Sure.
to me,
Yeah.
and it's just all timing.
They couldn't afford a home because they were wasting all their money on comics.
Right.
Yeah.
Or maybe they just weren't in the market at the
Yeah.
time. Yeah. So, but yeah, so it is coming to pay off now. But that first year, I was a new agent. And this is what I'll tell anybody that is a new agent that wants to get into real estate, is that first year is going to be brutal. Because not only do you not know what you don't know, you are fighting Google. People that the clients are very savvy at this point. They're going to go look you up. And if they look you up and see you've just became a realtor or you have one sale, that's going to be tough to combat.
Yep.
They may say, hey, this guy or girl is really smart. I think they're going to be able to help me out and guide me. I trust them. But there might be a lot of people more to the point that will say, no, I need somebody with a little more experience. This is going to be one of the largest purchases of my life.
Absolutely.
So it takes time. That first year, I did 10 deals and around $2 million, which, everybody's, said that was great.
Sure.
Yeah. Obviously, you always wanted to do more, but I was a realtor for a good 4 months before I closed my first deal.
Yeah.
It took a while. But that first year and every year after, I've used the marketing techniques I learned owning the comic book shop.
Yeah.
I used to always hear when I had the comic book shop, and I hear it now as a realtor, I see you everywhere. And that's the best compliment anybody can ever give me.
Sure.
Because I feel like I try and be everywhere, whether it's they go on my social media and see a clip of a podcast or some posts I make, or I like to make custom pens, and I leave them at some of my favorite restaurants, and when they get their check, they'll see my pen and take a picture of it.
Yeah.
They always get a chuckle out of that, but it's just, they're seeing me everywhere, whether they realize it or not.
Yep.
And when you're talking about marketing, what works or doesn't, the answer is yes. It all works.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you just have to do it all.
Consistency.
Yeah.
Yep.
You have to be consistent about it. And, obviously you'll have more return on investment on some things rather than others, and that's for you to decide individually what works. What works for me is not going to work for somebody else.
So you're in year 5, or you are surpassed 5 years?
No, I'm in year 5.
This is year 5 for you.
Yeah.
And so now with approaching 5 years, maybe this is not just for yourself, but what do you think the traits are of a successful realtor, whether it's just in general or even just in Brevard County?
Okay. So to be a successful realtor, to do this at a high level where you're making, 6+ figures and serving your clients well, more importantly, you have to be a full-time realtor.
Mm-hmm.
Number one. And that's not a knock against anybody that, is trying to make a little extra money and they think this is going to be, a great way to do that. But it's not. And you're not doing your clients any favors. And anybody that hires somebody that's not doing it full-time should beware.
Yep.
And that's not a mean thing to say. It's just my opinion. I think that I know there's no way I could do anything else. I've had days where, and I have assistants, I have coordinators helping me, and there's times where it's because I'm busy, where it's tough to be everywhere all at once to everybody. And one of the things I like to tell my clients is I'm always available. And I would say that's number 2. You have to be always available. You'll hear people say, oh, you have to set boundaries, or you have to time block, or you have to, and yes, you, to a certain extent you do, but let's keep it real. People are trusting you with the largest purchase of their life. If they're calling you at 2 or 3 in the morning, that's a problem. But if they're calling you at 9 o'clock at night and you're not responding just because you said, I'm not going to talk to anybody after 8, and you're just sitting in front of your TV or
Sure.
who knows what and not responding, I think that's a problem. That's just me. That's my personal opinion. I like to be always available. Every client I've had and done business with, they'll tell you he was always available.
Yep.
So I think that's important. And always available will mean something different to everybody, but you get what
Sure.
what it should be.
Yep.
Yeah. So we have always available, full-time, honest. You have to be a fiduciary to your clients. You have to make sure that you're putting their needs above your own. If a house they're buying has issues or problems, don't sugarcoat them. Tell them, this is what I've seen in my experience. This is what you may have coming towards you down the road.
Yep.
If you go that route, if you do buy this house, I try and tell them all the bad. And this way, if they do choose to, continue forward, they know. They've been told,
Yep.
and they just really like this house. And, yeah, they don't mind, dealing with whatever problems might come.
Do you have any desire to share? And, of course, we don't have to specify anybody specific or, like, any names or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything that you feel people are doing that's not working?
Well,
I mean, because you can do the opposing, like, trying to do it part-time.
Yeah.
It's just not gonna happen.
Trying to do it, in my opinion, yeah.
There's those things, but is there anything that just, like, you feel in the 5 years you've had locally or just anywhere that is not working?
I think marketing is very important, and there's some realtors probably out there that don't feel like they need to or don't do enough of it, and I've learned you can never do enough of it. I mean, you don't want to saturate your daily feed to the point where somebody's going to get sick of you. It's a balance, and you need to figure out what that balance is. Again, that's up to each individual. There's a lot of people that are just kind of doing it half-assed. They've got one foot in the pool, and that's it. And this is not something you can dip your toe in. You have to do a cannonball right into that pool.
Do you think that you're doing a good job of being aligned with the things that you're talking about? You say that you're, always available. You think being honest, and of course, you do it full time. Is there anything else that you feel you are still working to improve to be better towards?
One other thing I didn't say is you have to have the knowledge too. You have to have the years and experience. You have to understand how the law works, the contracts work. Every scenario is different. There's different types of buyers. There's different loans available to different types of buyers. So I think learning all that, which comes in time, doing the actual deals. I remember my first year, a lot of the deals were just complete disasters. And it's because, when you're new, a lot of the homes you're selling are, under 200,000 probably, or under a certain price point. And obviously those homes generally have a lot of problems, with whether it's roof or something inside. I learned how to navigate that trouble early on. And a mentor years later told me, his name's Patrick Wilson. If he's watching this, he does watch this sometimes. I will say he gave me some great advice. And it's stuff that but when you hear it out loud, it makes perfect sense. And he would just say, you're the bus driver. You have to get them from here to here. And that's what, from the time you submit an offer and it gets accepted, there are a lot of different pitfalls that can happen along the way. And that's why it's important to have a realtor who's knowledgeable, a good team behind you to help, and even business partners, whether it's a lender or a title company or, a lawyer, a real estate lawyer, whatever you're working with, they have to be people you know and trust and know that they're going to go all in for you. So I'm always available. I work hard. I make sure my business partners are always available.
Nice.
And work hard too.
Mm-hmm.
So if I tell my client that wants to sell their house, well, we're going to use such and such title company because I trust them. I've done a lot of business with them, and I know that if anything goes sideways, they're going to be on top of it.
Yep.
I'd like you to use such and such lender. If you want to shop around, I'll give you 2 or 3 names too. But I can tell you these people guarantee a closing. You might go to a bank and they're going to tell you some crazy low rate that is never going to happen. And you're going to go for it because it sounds so good. And then your deal is just never going to close, right? Or something is not going to work out quite the way they told you it would.
Do you think you have anything that you can do better that you're trying to work towards now?
Yeah. I mean, so just today on Facebook, I posted a saying I saw, and I spoke to me. It said, there is no end point. No, it said self-improvement has no end point.
Yeah.
And I think as a person and as a realtor and just as a human, I'm always trying to evolve. I'm always trying to be better. And, there's certain aspects of the job. There's so many different aspects of our job, whether it's making phone calls or talking to expireds or communicating with for sale by owners and saying to them, hey, I see where you're coming from, but, let me explain to you why maybe using a realtor is going to benefit you. So I haven't really done a lot. This was the first year that I've been talking to a lot of for sale by owners and telling them this year I've had the most listings I've ever had. And it's because I've focused on that. And it's why I'm having such a successful year, because if you control the listings, you control the market.
Yeah.
You control your own destiny.
No, I think about, just throughout this entire conversation, and I mean, we've spoken before. This is that's not news to anybody, but I've learned a few things. But to be groomed in a way, you as a business owner for 20 years, to work with a family member, to have success in that, at the diner, and then with that diner, where it was, the location, and the types of people. When you say all walks of life, and you described it as a carnival of just personalities and professions and anything like that, and learning how to communicate with all different types of people, as well as coming and entering a space that maybe you were uncomfortable with. You have a comic book store that you were passionate about, but you had never ran that type of space. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, learn to become a marketing guerrilla, I think, is something you mentioned. And so now you hit these, you can communicate with many personality types. You can work well with, a family member, which I think says a lot. You have found this marketing, you know, you were in a marketing space that you had to either you were surviving, and then to make something successful. And all of that is now groomed to now you can use every aspect of that in your real estate career.
Yeah.
And I think that can say a lot, and I think you're using that to the best of your ability from what you're describing.
Sure. And what you had said about how it can be better is I always try and work like I have no clients, like I have 0 clients.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to starve. I'm not going to pay any bills this month. And that mentality keeps me hungry.
Good.
And, you know, I have a lot of listings right now. I have buyers I'm working with. And I'm very blessed to be busy in a market that's been down for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I have worked very hard for that, though. I have put the time in. And that doesn't just happen magically. There's an old saying that they say, the harder I work, the luckier I get. You know, you'll see somebody doing well, and they'll say, oh, that guy's so lucky.
It's funny you mentioned that. I'm not one that – something I like to tell a lot of people that don't believe in luck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I make my own
So,
luck.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. There's always a reason, and it's a lot of times it's not luck. So
Right.
somebody says, oh, you know, it's so simple to say, oh, you were lucky if you win the lottery.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you had to play to win.
Sure.
So you're not, you know, if you didn't play and somebody called you and said you won the lottery, I feel like that may be lucky, but for the most part, I don't think that's happening. But yeah, so I'm not a big believer in luck. So for you to have success, I don't think luck has anything to do with it.
Right.
So
yeah, I'll promise anybody that wants to work with me that I'll treat you like you're my only client.
Yeah.
You know, and I'll work very hard for you.
Give them that time.
And I tell them that when I meet them for the first time, and they look at me and say, "I believe you."
Yeah.
You know.
What is the feedback you get from past clients?
All 5-star reviews, but you know they all are really surprised that when I did say I'm always available, I am always available. I am very cool and calm, so when the deal does, you know, hit a bump, because sometimes deals do, I am very reassuring to them, and sometimes they can't even believe how cool and calm I am. But just in life, I've learned that how you react to something is crucial to how you're going to get through it. So, yeah, if you want to react to a fire panicking and running away from it, that's fine. But, you know, I like to, you know, dive right into it and try and put it out.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Awesome. Is there any other points you wanted to touch on today?
I think we've hit them all.
Wow.
Yeah.
Get to know Peter Pappas. Say it again.
Peter Pappas.
Pappas.
Yeah.
I got to remember. Pappas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I used to
Now, because
I've had a lot of nicknames over the years.
All I want to call you right now is Peter Potatoes.
That's fine. Pete
Yeah.
Potatoes. It's Pete Potatoes.
Pete
though.
Potatoes.
Yeah. So that was a nickname.
Yep.
Some others I'm not going to repeat.
Where does the potatoes come from, just in case somebody may not understand?
Well, Pappas is I'm Greek, but if you were the Spanish word for potatoes is papas. So
it's just close enough.
So I had
Pete Potatoes.
I had some friends in high school that used to call me Pete Potatoes.
Oh, I like
P
that.
squared.
Yep.
The PP.
Mm-hmm.
But then I didn't like PP because it sounds like PP.
No, it's exactly PP.
So I always
doesn't sound
that's
like
why
it.
if
That's
you
exactly
look
what
at
it
a lot
is.
of my, whether it's my Facebook page or social media or anything, it's Peter J. Pappas.
Yeah, just to get that out of there.
It's more presidential.
Yeah. Well, good deal. Well, Peter, I think I consider you a great friend.
Yeah, likewise.
I hope you know that, and I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to allow people to get to know you a little bit.
There was nobody else I would have asked.
Knock it off. Yeah. So I know I was the 7th phone call.
Not at all. Not at all.
So, well, no, it was great. If you have anything else.
No, man. Thank you. I appreciate it.
No, thank you. I really appreciate it. So you would close us out? Or
Yeah, well, hope everybody enjoyed getting to know me a little bit better. If you ever want to know more, let's set up a coffee or get a happy hour drink. And,
throw your plugs in here.
Yeah. I mean, I am a really hard worker. I will do whatever it takes to make you happy as a client, and I'm very knowledgeable, and I will treat you like you're my only client.
There you go.